Good evening, everyone. I'm your host, John Fishman. This is the second School of Fish podcast. I'm joined today by David Geldzahler, who is a summer associate with my company in 2021. David, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
This is officially the first podcast interview, but we're going to call it the second. We had some technical difficulties out of the gate, but it'd be great for you to maybe share your personal background prior to the summer, and then we'll dive into some things related to working with us at Bizydev.
Absolutely. So I'm from Denver, born and raised. I'm currently attending the University of Pennsylvania as a rising junior, studying history and political science. And last summer, I worked as an analyst at a real estate private equity firm here in Denver. And I'm joining you, John, this summer at Bizydev as a summer associate to get a good feel of the business development and startup world.
And David, kind of going backwards, forwards, we've loved having you work with us in June and July. And one thing that I find we thought would be interesting and has really played out nicely is the fact that you had you're a history major, and we tried to think about having a mixed background of candidates working with us. How do you feel, or how do you feel your major in history has translated into the world of business so far?
I think that one of the great skills that being a history major has taught me is the ability to communicate. And I think that that's really important in the business world, and especially the business development world, where it's a lot about making connections and meeting new people. And, you know, in my case, I'm doing a lot of writing, which I really enjoy. And I feel like that's a skill that I have, developed pretty strongly. And I'm glad that it's able to translate and be beneficial to Bizydev. And it's just great to see that these skills, being a history major, have been so beneficial to Bizydev in general.
And when we were first connected through someone that was working with us in the fall and winter, that's a fraternity brother of yours, and he was nice enough to post something, I believe, on your fraternity website. What was it in that post at the time, towards the end of kind of COVID or the first quarter of the year, that interested you to kind of reach out to us and potentially work versus some of the opportunities maybe that you were considering?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of credit goes to him. He really, sold Bizydev well. He, described what you guys are doing, how, it's kind of a really unique business in the startup world, and how you guys are, having a lot of success, making connections and working with a bunch of companies and a bunch of different industries, and how you and your co-founder Jason have backgrounds in real estate, and I worked in real estate last summer. So kind of all those qualities kind of attracted me to Bizydev, and I figured, this would be a really interesting opportunity and one that I hadn't really considered. So I, reached out and things developed from there, and here I am, happy to be here.
And one thing that I've actually never heard mentioned, but the time period before we, I think, conducted our first interview to the time when either myself or one of my colleagues reached out to you to extend an offer, what was going through your head in terms of, when you potentially really want something or you want something to work out and you don't know if it's actually to come to fruition? How did that feel as a 19 or 20-year-old, or 20-year-old, now that I know you're 21, based on your birthday the other day? Happy 21st.
Thank you very much.
But what was that feeling like that I think would be interesting to other people that are going through that hiring process?
Absolutely. So, the hiring process for internships it's pretty competitive, especially at Penn. There's a lot of stress and emphasis put on the internships and the job opportunities that you receive. And so I was kind of right in the middle of that recruiting season, and I was talking to you guys. You guys were my number one choice, and I had some other offers that I was considering, but they kind of exploded before we were really certain of things with Bizydev. And so I really just had to weigh the question of, well, would I rather, take this opportunity, which I'm less excited about, which would still be interesting, but might not be as productive for me going forward, or do I want to bet on myself and lean towards this company that it was doing something really interesting and that I think I could be really helpful for, and I think that could really help me. And I decided, just to bet on myself and to, continue, putting my head down and grinding and seeing what I could do to show you guys that I really wanted to come work here. And it ended up working out. So,
Yeah.
To anyone looking and who's kind of in that position, definitely believe in yourself and once you set your sights on something that you really want to do, give it 110.
And who was the first call after you got the offer extended to you? Was it your parents? Was it a friend? Was it a girlfriend?
It
Who
was
did you let know that it was going to work out?
It was definitely my parents, and then it was my girlfriend, and then it was all my friends, because my parents are, putting a lot of, a little pressure on me to do what I can and do my best, and so they're really excited to hear
That's great.
get the opportunity.
One thing that I never told you is years ago when we had summer interns, we created the summer intern test. They used to be geared towards real estate experience. This summer, we may have to create the first Bizydev intern test. And one of the things we used to do is share the answers to that test with our associates' parents, just so they could see that it's almost like the money they're spending in education paying off in the real world. So be
Yeah,
on the lookout for that, just to give you the heads up.
that would be super. Yeah.
And then how do you, this was a unique summer. It was kind of the tail end of COVID. And obviously, it was more of a remote work experience.
For sure.
How did you feel about that going in, potentially being so isolated or acting in more of a solo manner, working
Right.
from home in Colorado, where Jason, myself, and others are based in New York City?
Right.
How did you think about that, feel about that going in? And also, how has it kind of played out? How have you stayed disciplined? How have you kind of been productive in that environment?
Yeah. I mean, coming into the summer, I really didn't know what to expect. I had worked in person last summer, funny enough, which was a really good experience for me, being in an office and getting used to that kind of world. So this was new for me, working remotely, not having someone there you can just go, ask questions to, be in constant communication with. So I was really unsure of what that was going to look like. I wasn't sure if I was going to be in Denver or in Chicago or what have you. So I think it's really worked out for me because it's taught me, you got to be self-disciplined when you're working remotely because there's going to be nobody there to keep you on task. As you know, John, in the first few weeks, there were moments when, I wouldn't have anything to do. And so I would, email you, do you have any projects for me to work on, anything that you need me to look at? And as the summer has gone on, I've gotten more comfortable. Well, when I have nothing urgent to work on, looking for stuff like networking or working on certain databases or other projects that may not have a certain end date, but you can constantly work on and use that to kind of spend your time and keep your discipline.
Yeah, I would say that kind of can be summarized learning the skill set of self-sufficiency,
Right.
right? And you learn that being a high functioning student, I'm sure, at your university.
Yeah.
But in the business world, it's almost like having these rolling situations where you hear something one day and the importance of writing it down, understanding the magnitude of that ask from your boss or your mentor or leader of a company, so that you, in those down moments, have something to do. And our running joke is, you never, given the amount of conversations we've had and ideas, there should never be a moment where you can't find something to draw from and on to work in and help the company out. Talk a little bit about what the experience has been like working with we have 3 summer associates, so working with Joe and Pat, and how you guys have kind of formed your own mini pod, so to say, to kind of attack things together and
Yeah,
brainstorm, et cetera.
absolutely. I mean, it's phenomenal having somebody to lean on. And when I have questions that may not be of import to you guys, or maybe are trivial enough that don't want to waste your guys' time, it's really nice having somebody who I can go to and say, hey, can you take a look at this? What do you think about this? And I think that we've formed some pretty strong bonds, and I would love to someday not only meet these guys in person, but keep up relationships, and hopefully we've cultivated strong enough bonds that this Bizydev internship class can remain friends and keep in contact going forward.
Yeah, there will be a School of Fish intern dinner one at some point in time with the 3 of you and many others that have worked with us through the years. And then as a follow on to working with other associates in a remote work environment, how have you kind of gone about figuring out skill sets and kind of where you have certain strengths that maybe the other guys don't have, and vice versa, and complement each other to make sure that tasks and work at hand gets done?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think the great thing about working at a company like Bizydev is you really got to get involved with just about everything. And when you are involved with a lot of sides of this business, you get a sense of what you're good at and maybe what you're not so strong at, and what you like doing and what you don't like doing. So for example, one of the other interns, Joe, I talk to him virtually every day, and he's always on calls. He's great with networking. He's great, reaching out to different people and making these connections. And I try my hand at that. I'm not terrible at it, and I somewhat enjoy it. But with all the different experiences that I've had here, one of the things that I've realized is that I really like helping Bizydev out on more of the creative side. And that means writing certain blog posts or content pieces, or working on marketing info, and a lot of the internal stuff to just kind of help BizDev develop itself, and keep in line with our own goal of business development.
Yeah, years ago we used to have an expression, or the expression that I heard from people I worked with, which was smile and dial, which was a way of saying do outreach, cold call people, things like that. In the new world, we should think about a good tagline to express the version of that, which is more email, text,
Right.
Typing oriented, as opposed to always talking oriented.
That would be, we should think about that for sure.
So now that the summer's finishing up, how would you recap, what you've learned, where you've grown in the 6 or 7 weeks, and probably 8 or 9 weeks that you'll be with us?
Yeah. And of course, I would love to stay involved. So this doesn't have to be the end, but we'll see. And but what I've learned about myself, I think I've actually learned a lot about how I approach tasks, and how I approach different projects. I really enjoy having a finished product that I can present to somebody and get feedback on, and develop and sharpen. And I like to have something tangible that I can point to and say, all right, this is the culmination of a lot of my hard work. And so, going forward in my career path, that's a good thing to know about myself, is that I really do enjoy, having, a good set of goals and something to kind of reach for, that's attainable. And I also think a lot of the work that we do here is very qualitative, and it's a lot of connections and reaching out and being affable and all that stuff. And that was one of the things that I believe that was one of my strengths, and I definitely still believe that I'm very strong in that department. But I've also realized that I enjoy having a bit of the quantitative part of my job, whether it's working with numbers of any kind, working with models, just some kind of connection there where I can get it, something else to kind of grab onto, and kind of look at and give me a good sense of what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge as a manager is when I receive something from a colleague that they feel like there's a sense of urgency to get it to me.
Mhm.
And sometimes, not that it's a rush job, because some people can produce really good work in a short period of time,
Right.
but like kind of finding that balance where, you look at something multiple times, you do additional research, you get input from others before you turn it in to someone that you're working with. And on the flip side, it's actually like, so one school of thought that I have is that certain times you've delivered, we'll call it, let's just use content on something that we requested. In my mind, I said, I wish David had spent a little bit more time before rushing to get it in front of us.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, what's good is we're also crossing things off the list. So it's like this balance of, you want things to be amazing and perfect, and at the same time, you want to get things done.
Right.
So that's kind of, it's like a necessary evil in the back and forth process.
Yeah, absolutely.
So David, just to kind of get closer to wrapping up here, going back to school and thinking about the future. You're going, as you said, to be a rising junior. How's your mindset changed having been in the business world now, and how that will kind of manifest while you're back in school, and then maybe even to next summer or eventually when you graduate from Penn?
Yeah. Well, I can definitely say that, being at Penn, you're definitely kind of, put in this funnel of, straight to, corporate America. And there's a lot less consideration for, all the different sides of business and finance that aren't, bulge bracket firms and these huge investment banks and stuff like that. So, being in this startup world and having all these connections and seeing what all these interesting people are doing, it's definitely, exposed me to a different side of that world that I was kind of unfamiliar with prior to this summer. So, going forward, I will have that perspective of, well, yeah, a lot of my friends and a lot of the people I know are definitely going into these huge, finance firms, and that's fine. But I can consider doing that. Or, there's this whole other world that's just as interesting and that's doing just as productive work and could be just as productive for me. So
Yeah.
that's definitely given me that perspective for sure.
And as I said to you at the beginning of the summer, and I've always said to people that have worked with me, is that people ultimately helping you out to find the next opportunity, your first job, your last job, whatever it ends up being. People that you worked with are your best referral sources. And one thing that I will attest to now on public record is people that work with me know that they have and do right by us and work hard and demonstrate that they're capable and competent and good humans, have a lifetime support system from myself and Jason and Jordan. So we just wanted to also thank you. This is also a birthday present. You were officially the first summer associate ever interviewed on School of Fish,
Thank you
and
so much.
appreciate your technical support to get this episode off the ground. And this is the end of episode 2, quasi episode 1. And hopefully this interview gives everyone a little bit of insight into some of our philosophies about business development and how we view our company, ourselves, and appreciate you listening. And be sure to swim along with our next episode of School of Fish. Later.